Allow me to take you all on a journey. I'd like you to imagine yourself walking through a big modern city. Picture this with me. You're walking through New York City on your average Saturday. It's a quiet and peaceful morning, and you're enjoying your ice cream until you hear the sound of construction happening everywhere. Now, it's loud and noisy, and the air pollution from the construction is making you cough. You quickly walk to your local park as fast as possible. Peace and quiet again. But it's quite hot here too, isn't it? Much hotter than the countryside, for sure. You look down and you notice your ice cream's melted everywhere and you're sweating all over. The heat has you quite tired. You feel kind of sick and you definitely need some rest after all that. You want to go lay down on that bench over there. However, unfortunately for you, there's a divider, so all you can do is just sit down. But as soon as your skin makes contact with the hot steel bench that's been sitting out in the sun, you feel a sizzle that makes you jump out of your seat. Your Saturday morning has officially been ruined, and you decide to just head back home. You don't really like this big, grand city anymore, do you? Well, in such ways, modern urban architecture fails to accommodate your comfort. Its biggest flaw is that it disallows us from enjoying two really important needs we have: freedom and health. In doing so, modern urban spaces fail to provide citizens with a comfortable experience in their own areas of residence. Only places that are required to make you feel comfortable will do so. If any modern urban architecture isn't required to do that, it just won't. For example, let's revisit the steel bench. Benches are there so that you have a place to sit in case you get tired or you need to wait for something like a bus, right? No one said they have to be comfortable to do so. They just have to perform their function and be durable enough to last long. So now you get to sit on steel benches in your local park and be sore or uncomfortable for the next few minutes. However, city planners like to take this to even bigger extremes by making sure that the piece of architecture is designed to restrict interaction or keep it at a minimum, basically trying to direct your behavior. Controlling, isn't it? Well, such pieces of architecture are known as hostile or defensive architecture. The divider that stops you from laying down on a bench is a prime example of hostile architecture nowadays. However, there's more. Benches in the New York City subway have been replaced with small and uncomfortable leaning platforms to prevent people from laying down or loitering in the area. And while these hostile architectures do stop everyone from laying down, they're mainly intended towards homeless people, which is quite cruel, I feel. I mean, how would you feel like if your only form of bedding at night was taken away just for city planners to be happy with themselves? Modern hostile architecture can be found in many other places and used in other scenarios as well. For example, in Tokyo, Japan, where chains are put on stair railings to prevent skaters from skating in certain public areas. And hostile architecture is just going to keep on spreading because of the rapid expansion of urban areas. Due to our lack of self-control, the human population is growing so fast that we need to constantly expand our urban areas to keep up with our need for more and more housing. However, the materials that we're going to be using for all of this, mainly steel and concrete, may threaten us with a much bigger problem than just hostile architecture. These materials are the reason for the massive PM content in the city air that's been making you sick, as well as the scorching city heat brought by the greenhouse effect. These two materials release massive amounts of PM and CO2 into the city air, causing the construction sector to be responsible for over half of the greenhouse gas emissions on the planet. Not only are these byproducts unhealthy for us, they contribute largely to global warming. Additionally, these materials are highly heat conductive, meaning they rapidly absorb it. When paired up with the large use of the color black in modern urban architecture, also known for its heat conductive properties, alongside the dense packing of people and buildings in urban spaces, we're left with the UHI, or urban heating island effect. What this means is that urban areas have higher temperatures than surrounding areas, ranging from 1 degree to around 12 degrees or so in difference. No wonder New York City felt so much hotter than the countryside. So these materials are the reason that your ice cream keeps dripping down your hands. And if we continue expanding with them, who knows how much worse conditions in urban areas are going to get. So how can we change our cities to make your lives much better? Well, Our team of students researched the design for a perfect urban space consisting of 5 main elements. First, and most simple, the elimination of all hostile architecture, because we aren't lifeless souls looking to punish anyone we can find. However, now that hostile architecture is eliminated, homeless people will be back to sleeping on benches, and city planners aren't going to be too happy about that, are they? And benches aren't really the best bedding option either. So how do we eliminate this problem altogether? This is where the housing first approach comes in. Now, most of you likely know of the paradoxical dilemma where homeless people need a job to buy a house, but they need a home address just to apply for that job. I mean, who came up with that? Well, what the housing first approach does is it eliminates this silly issue by providing homeless people with temporary housing and financial aid, as well as a job, allowing them to get on their feet and providing them the opportunities they need to build a life on their own. Thirdly, our urban areas require large, open, circular spaces, which provide sufficient lighting and interesting areas for public interaction. Another type of space we'd like to introduce are urban green spaces. If you're wondering, these are spaces that contain large amounts of plants, grass, vegetation, or any other kind of greenery. For example, the Chicago Millennium Park shown up here. Or even just your average building if you manage to incorporate greenery on the sides or rooftops. Now, what these areas do is they utilize the large amount of vegetation to absorb the massive CO2 content in the city air, providing a cooling effect and countering the urban heating island effect. Additionally, they're quite visually pleasing, providing citizens with interesting areas to live in. I mean, we can even take a vote. Would you rather reside in location 1, a dull, shadowy city area with dark, polluted air, or location 2, a bright, open, green space like an infinity building, which has clean air as well? Most of you likely would go to location 2, disregarding the fact that it's our school, which proves my point that urban spaces are much more appealing if we add open areas and greenery. Lastly, our final element might be a bit more unheard of. So I'd like to introduce you to cross-laminated timber, a type of timber that goes through an extensive gluing and pressing process. What this timber does is it releases much less CO2 than concrete during construction, as well as much less PM than steel. Out of the 4 tested types of PM, cross-laminated timber releases noticeably less amounts of 3 of them. Now, what this all means is that this wood could save your hard-earned 10-baht ice cream, and it stops you from using sickness from contaminated air as an excuse to skip work or school. Together, all 5 of these elements will ensure you're happily ever after in the big city you dream of living in. Thank you for your attention. You've been a wonderful audience.